I'm Paul Hires, and this is Unqualified Opinions. Today I'll be joined by Will Beiermann to give you guys an update on some NBA action and the occurrences that have happened since the season began. But before we begin, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comments section down below. We want to hear what you want to see. Give us some recommendations. If you do, we'll probably make a video on it. But that being said, let's get into it. Let's take a look at the rookies this season. Which ones do you think are on your top watch list?
Well, I'd say one of the rookies who I think has been the most interesting by far has been Evan Mobley. And Evan Mobley, third pick at USC. I know we talked about him a lot on the live stream for the NBA, which, by the way, is still up. If you guys have any questions on our stance about rookies, what to know about rookies, just any of that stuff, you can still go back and take a look at that and see what we thought at the time, see if it's changed since then. And then, of course, as you guys like to do, find out where I was wrong and come back and tell me about it.
But we'll link that in the description and tag it in the video.
I mean, again, obviously you have to mention it first. We've only been 9 or 10 games in. Some teams only played 8 still, I think. But Evan Mobley, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. He's shooting 49% from the field, only 20% from three. But his 3-point shooting was always supposed to be a skill that kind of came along gradually. But I mean, defensively, he's been flat out dominant at times. He's looked really good in this weird Cavaliers rotation with Lauri Markkanen and Jared Allen, and he just looked like a future star. He looks like Chris Bosh. It's been really fun to watch him. Then, of course, I've also been really interested to see Chris Duarte, what he's been up to. I mean, obviously, I think you guys can tell we weren't super high on that pick when we were doing the draft video. But, I mean, as expected from a 24-year-old rookie, which was a big criticism we have of him, he's stepped up. He's been making shots. He's been one of the key pieces on a Pacers team that, to be fair, has been a little bit of a disappointment. And I think we'll keep it at 3 to keep it short. But the other guy, by the way, Duarte, averaging 16 points, while shooting 42% from 3 on high volume. But I think we'll just wrap up this rookie question with another pick that we soundly criticized. I myself soundly criticized and point out Franz Wagner out of Michigan playing down in Orlando. 14.9 points a game, 3 rebounds. He shot 41% from 3, which is kind of the big swing skill for him. He's been a great defender. He knows what he's doing off the ball. I mean, we've seen, honestly, so far, a huge amount of rookies who've been super impressive. There are more I could go on about. Josh Giddey, Jalen Green's had his moments. I mean, but we'll keep it at 3. But so far, I think this is probably one of the times we've really seen probably the fastest early development, early returns from a lot of rookies. Like, this class has popped off so far.
Let's transition into a little mini game we've played in the past, buy or sell. Let's take a look at some of these teams and let you decide whether they should buy or sell here in the coming weeks. So first up, we've got the Chicago Bulls.
I'm going to buy Chicago Bulls. I think DeMar DeRozan's been a revelation. He's looking like an all-star. Vucevic is leading the team in assists, which is kind of funny to me. Lonzo Ball's played well. And then Alex Caruso actually has been just a revelation off the bench. He's played well with the ball. I mean, Levine, I didn't mention him, but he's obviously probably an all-star. He's looking for that max contract. The Bulls are a fun team to watch. I really enjoy checking in on their games. They'll be a team I'll be watching all season. I'm absolutely going to buy the Bulls. Probably, I think they could end up being like a 4th or a 3rd seed at best. So definitely a team to watch.
The New York Knicks, are they back? What do you think?
I think this one's a little tougher. I mean, they definitely shocked the league last year at their playoff berth. I don't know if I see them. I think I'd put them a little below the Bulls. But I think 4 at highest, but the 5th or 6th seed in the playoff range is where I'd put them. Absolutely, the New York Knicks are a playoff team. Julius Randle, I know I personally had a lot of questions about him last year. He obviously had a crazy year, but would that carry over? Is he going to be the same guy? So far, he really has been. RJ Barrett, 19 points per game. There's not been a lot of noise about him. He was drafted after Zion and Ja, and there's some guys below him who exceeded expectations, but I think not enough people are talking about how good RJ Barrett's been. And then Fournier and Kemba Walker, the big additions, obviously have really provided a shot to the arm for this team. Do I think they're a championship contender? No. Are they going to be one of the best teams in the East, like a top 5 or 6 team for sure?
Boston, are the C's a sell or a buy?
I think I'd have to, it's going to sound like a lazy answer, but I'd have to buy them as like a playoff team. Absolutely, I'm selling them as a legitimate contender or a top like 4 or 5 team in the East so far. Jaylen Brown had 26 a game, but Jason Tatum has been all over the place. I mean, he's had some games where he looks like the all-star player he is. He's had some games where he just shot atrociously from the field. They have this weird Marcus Smart beef going on. Al Horford is playing probably too many minutes. Great player, one of the most underappreciated modern big men, but I don't think you want him playing as heavily as he has so far. Then, of course, you're relying on Dennis Schroeder off the bench, and that's a dice roll every night. So far, I'm going to pass. I'm going to sell on the Celtics. Their bench and their depth really scare me.
And to wrap up this stock watch in the NBA, the Blazers have been struggling to start the season. Where do you have Portland at right now?
I think the West is continuing to get better. Sacramento's rising up. The Wolves aren't probably not a playoff team, but they're looking better. And the Blazers just kind of find themselves buried right now. This is the hardest call we have to make because they're 3-5. They've looked really bad at times, but so far it's under the contingency that Damian Lillard has played uncharacteristically poorly and shot uncharacteristically poorly from the 3-point line. And do I think that's going to carry over? Absolutely not. I think Dame's going to come back and do his thing. That being said, I mean, as close as the Blazers have been to being out of the playoffs entirely the last couple seasons, it is a little hard to see them like hanging in the West. So I'm selling them right now. I think they're either a playoff team or like an 8th seed so far. I mean, they could prove me wrong, but I'll sell the Blazers right now.
The 76ers have been kind of a mess to start the year with the whole Ben Simmons thing. What do you make of that to this point?
This team's like a Jenga tower right now. And if you pull a couple little blocks, the whole thing's come down. I mean, Embiid, only 20 points a game, low for his standards. And he's been a little banged up. And again, Joel Embiid's at a point where when he's healthy, flat out one of the best players in the league. But he's so injury plagued, it's dramatically takes down the outlook of the Sixers every time he gets a little banged up. The whole franchise kind of has to internally panic when that happens. And with the weird Ben Simmons saga going on still, you can't really count on Ben Simmons to be there to help the Sixers win games when Embiid's gone. Tobias Harris, 19 a game, obviously always been great. And my boy Seth Curry, 17 points per game, still proven to be one of the best shooters, most underappreciated players in the league. But I don't see a lot of proven other options on the Sixers right now. Tyrese Maxey's looked great. He's still young. He doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience. Georges Niang is playing bigger minutes than I ever thought he'd play, scoring 11 a game. I don't know if that hot start and hot shooting is going to last. I just look up and down this roster, and I don't see a lot of guys who are going to scare me when it comes to the playoffs, or more importantly, I don't see a roster that's going to win a lot of games if Joel Embiid misses, say he's hurt for 10 games, 15 games, 20 games a season. He's usually good for that much missed time. I don't see this team being that competitive in the times he's out. So I think the Sixers definitely do have a problem. I think Ben Simmons aside, there's just a lot of roster structure problems right now. They're going to be good as long as Embiid's healthy, but I just really don't think this is a group that's going to win meaningful games as long as he's off the court. So that is a situation that would scare me if I was a Sixers fan.
Cleveland, what direction are they going? What do you think?
For the first time in a couple seasons, I'm actually really, really excited to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Currently sitting at 8th. Again, they played 9 games, so that's not really something worth looking at. But I don't know. It's just they've been such a blah team the last couple years. They've had Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, who are both promising young point guards, but I think we've kind of decided over the past couple of years that they're probably not, all-star type guys, franchise-changing type guys, like true number one pieces. The Kevin Love thing continues to go on, which, I mean, it both surprised me and didn't surprise me. His contract is pretty much untradeable, but, I kind of thought some team like Portland or the Utah Jazz would kind of desperation trade for him at this point. But I think Evan Mobley just changes so much of that, because whether or not he turns into the star that a lot of people think he could be, when it comes to the direction of a franchise, especially a rebuilding one, a lot of the direction just comes from what their perception or the league perception of their top young players, and Evan Mobley gives them excitement. He gives them a direction to focus on, which I don't really think they had. They can build around Evan Mobley, if he keeps playing well, he's that guy. Rubio's been great for them. Like, bringing in a veteran like him is the kind of thing you can only really do if you're starting to be more confident in your direction. You're going to need veterans like Rubio, and they can start getting a couple of those now that they have, just somewhere they're going. I think Markkanen at the small forward, that's been a super fun experiment. He's starting to pick it up a lot. I really love seeing that. Mobley and Allen are great enough defenders. I mean, Mobley's a 7-footer who can play on the perimeter as a defender. And that can help mask a lot of Lowry's weaknesses while still allowing him to fire away from three. So I think the Cavaliers, they're going to need Isaac Okoro to step up big if they want to be a playoff team in the next couple seasons. They probably need a couple more guys off the bench. But, I think the Cavaliers are finally starting to show that they're heading in the right direction definitively.
All right, so let's transition into some of the superfan questions from our superfan, Sully S. Shout out there. All right, so first up, let's take a look at Utah. If you're picking between Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert, which one do you see representing the Jazz for an MVP spot there, or do you see either of them?
I don't really know if I can say I see either of these guys going for MVP, but at the same time, let's humor this, because for one, we've seen a lot of stars like Dame and Trae Young, and sadly Luka, who, on a side note, it's weird that we see this guy almost average a 20-point triple-double like a night, and we're like, oh, wow, like only 23 points a game. Pick it up, Luka. Let's throw Donovan Mitchell in there. We'll plug both of these guys into that championship race factor and just see how they stack up. So right off the top, the success of your team is always going to be a huge factor in being the MVP. Like Jokic, amazing season, but I think it would have gone entirely unappreciated if the Nuggets had been bad. The Jazz are going to be one of the top two teams in the West Conference, most likely. They're not going to be bad teams, so you can automatically have the good team argument done for them. Donovan Mitchell, almost 25 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He's really picked up his shooting a lot. His PER is high at 21. The problem there, small market. They're not going to get a lot of love ever, but I mean, Jokic winning it for Denver is going to be a step in the right direction. I think so far Donovan Mitchell, probably has to be considered in the MVP race. As long as the Jazz are winning and he's putting up, 25 points per game and efficiently kind of being the lead guy there, he's going to be in that conversation. Rudy Gobert is the other interesting one because currently he has averaging 15 points, which would be a career high by a good amount, but also 17 rebounds, which is absolutely otherworldly. Also 2 blocks per game. He's interesting because I think he could put up an MVP-worthy season, but because of the stigma around him as a player, his position, and just the fact that he's not a clear number one guy, and he's not a clear star scorer who does flashy stuff all the time, I don't think Gobert's ever really going to be in the MVP category. I think the question for us is he's still probably a player I would consider to be a bit underrated by the fans, but at what point do you have to look at how many Defensive Player of the Year awards this guy's going to win and start being like, okay, we're looking at one of the all-time great defensive players at this point. I don't think enough people talk about that. So MVP for Gobert, no. Extremely underrated in the long-term context of the game, yes. Mitchell, I'll put him in the MVP discussion on a probationary status, but I don't think he's going to quite take it.
Shifting to our last question of the day, also asked by our superfan, Sully S. Thank you for the questions, by the way. Who in your mind to this point, player, team, coach, whatever, hasn't been getting enough recognition for what they've done to this point a few weeks into the season? Who do you think needs a little bit more respect right now?
I mean, team-wise, you always can throw the Jazz up there just because they're not really going to be the media darlings or anything. If you look at like ESPN's power rankings, half the time I feel like, yeah, the Jazz are number one, but people kind of feel like skimmed, even myself, kind of skimmed through that to go see what the flashier teams are doing. But we talked about them already. I mean, I think the Heat and the Warriors are the two big surprise teams, both at 6-1 right now, but they get enough press already. So if I had to pick an under-heralded team so far, one that needs more love, the Toronto Raptors. I don't know if it's going to stick. I don't know if they're going to keep up this winning. They're 6-3 right now, but man, Scotty Barnes has been amazing. I've totally forgot to talk about him when we were talking about our rookies earlier, but he's been totally outperformed expectations as a scorer, great passer and rebounder as advertised. And I mean, the Raptors don't have Pascal Siakam yet. And when they can plug in OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes alongside Siakam, for one, I don't know who can defend that. I mean, Siakam might have to play some center. That could be some awkwardness. But I mean, I don't know who can defend that group or who can score on that group. And then with Van Vliet and Siakam back, that takes a lot of scoring pressure off Barnes, lets him develop more naturally. So I'll say the Raptors there. I think a lot of people talk about the Heat. I don't think enough people are talking about specifically how good Jimmy Butler's been so far. 25 points per game. He's shooting really well from three, which is not really something we're accustomed to seeing him doing. He's currently shooting at a 35% clip, which again, not great for the league average, but Jimmy Butler shooting that much on volume is good for him. And I think he's really been an underrated leader. A lot of people want to talk about how Tyler Hero's gone absolutely supernova, or Kyle Lowry's playing well, or Bam just continues to emerge as a great player, but Jimmy Butler deserves a little more love. Harrison Barnes. He's kind of the NBA equivalent of a box of frosted cornflakes. He plays for the Kings. No one really likes to check in on the Kings, although they're looking a lot better. And he's mostly just remembered for being kind of this fifth man on the Warriors, not being terribly exciting. 23 points, 9 rebounds per game, 24.54 PER, is 20th in the league. I think he's not going to be a world beater. He's not going to be an all-star. But Harrison Barnes is absolutely an underappreciated player in the league, and he's really showed that so far this season with a hot start.
Well, that will do it for this week's NBA update. If you like this video, go ahead and click the like button. If you want to see more content on the NBA from Unqualified Opinions, click the subscribe. And please let us know down in the comments section. Respond to questions you heard in this video. Give us questions of your own for videos in the future, and give us ideas for videos altogether in the future in the comments. We want to hear your unqualified opinions down in the comments section. We want to hear what you want to see. With that being said, for Will Beiermann, I'm Paul Hires. This is Unqualified Opinions. We'll see you in the next one.